first met Peter in the local pub when I was working behind the bar. He was a regular there, and he asked me out on a few dates, and I always was a bit like, no. And then eventually I was just like, okay, yes, I'll go out for a drink with you. The first few months were fine. They were okay, we were happy, they were nice. Little things started to creep in, like he didn't like me working behind the bar, other men talking to me, and then he started to tell me what to wear. Made it really difficult for me to go out with my friends. If I ever did go out with my friends and he came out with us, he'd get really drunk or embarrass me or find a reason to have an argument with somebody or something. So in the end, I thought about Christmas. I thought, right, I'm going to get through Christmas and then we're going to leave. I'm going to finish, because I'd moved in with him at that point. And it was then when I found out I was pregnant. After our son was born, he still continued to drink a lot and wasn't supportive. There was a few times that we'd gone out, and the first time, for example, when we'd put the nursery together, I found him trying to relieve himself in the cot, and then at one point during our relationship, when our son was born, I woke up to find him nearly doing that. So that was the night that I decided that I can't do this anymore, I need to leave. He didn't react very well at all when the relationship ended. He was drinking even more. He'd follow me to places where I was. He'd ring all the time on my mobile phone. If I didn't answer, then he'd ring the house phone where I was living with my parents. It got to the point where he was turning up at the pub where I'd gone to see my friends and looking through the window at me, which was really scary. It was a pretty normal day. He rang me, so eventually I answered the phone, and he said he had something to tell me. So I said, okay, fine, tell me, and he wouldn't. He said you needed to tell me face to face. So I said, look, I'm going up to Asda, you can take me up in the car, tell me then, and drop me off back home. So he said, that's fine. So he took me out and told me what he needed to tell me, but then started to get angry with me over a friendship I have with a male friend, accusing us of doing things that we weren't doing, and in the end completely flipped out and decided to drive me up to the local beauty spot. During this time I'd text his mum saying, please help me, and then she rang him, and then that's when he realised I'd text her and took my phone off me and disconnected the battery. He was getting really cross with me, and he then pushed me into the back seat and then raped me. I was feeling really, really scared, and I didn't quite understand what was happening. I thought, oh, is this what it feels like? Is this what's happening? I couldn't quite understand, because obviously I knew him. He was a father to my child. He stopped and finished, and then I was saying, you need to take me home, you need to let me get out of the car. And I was trying to beep the horn and open the door and flash the lights, because there was another car at the end of the car park. He just drove off and slammed the door shut and drove off at speed down the road, and then pulled into another track further down. I was just asking him to think about our son and to take me home, and everything was going to be okay, and he refused to and raped me again. I got out the car and started running down this dirt track towards the main road again, and I just about got there, and he grabbed me from behind and then dragged me all the way back to the car again. He then raped me for the third time. He said, just stop fighting back, lie back, and just we'll get it over and done with. I don't think the trial helped me to let him know the impact of what happened. I was able to give a factual recount of what happened, and I really didn't want him to see me cry during the trial, during my evidence. So it didn't give me the opportunity to really get across to him and his family that were there how much hurt and pain that he had caused by his actions. After I'd given evidence, I felt like it happened all over again. It brought back all the feelings, the sights, the smell, everything came back. So it was quite difficult to deal with. Peter's sentence was 6 years for what he did. Knowing that he was not able to ring me anymore, or I could bump into him in the street, was really comforting. So I was able to move on fully and know that I didn't have that fear behind me. But there was always just something that just felt that I wasn't still able to tell him or give my side of the story to let him know. Restorative justice was first introduced to me by my victim liaison officer, Karen. She started speaking to me in the January. Peter was due to be released in the April. And because we have a son together, she suggested exchanging letters to try and open some lines of communication. I thought, though, that letters, it wasn't the right route for me, and she suggested meeting face to face with using restorative justice platform. I had come a long way since Peter had been sentenced, and Karen knew that restorative justice would help me and be suitable for us. She arranged quite a few meetings with me. We discussed the different questions that I would like to ask, or what I would like to say and what I'd like to get out of the meeting. She also, at every point, explained I could pull out. I didn't, just because I'd said yes doesn't mean I have to go through with it. Even as I was about to walk into the room, she said, "You still don't have to do this." And I was like, "No, I want to." I went into the meeting wanting to get my point across, to tell him the effect his crime has had on me and my family, and to finally give myself and my family a voice. It was agreed that I would want to speak first, so he was already in the room. I walked into the room and saw him sat there. And then Karen said to me, "You wanted to tell Peter how he's affected your life." And I looked at him in the eyes and I told him, I said, you ruined my life. I said, "You haven't now, I've moved on, but for 1 year of my life, you ruined it with your actions." And to be able to say that to him, to his face, was so good, to make him realise the consequence of his actions. Not for him, because he had to go to prison and he had lost that freedom, but the result of his actions on me, the victim. I likened us to a pebble in a pond, explained that we were the epicentre, and the ripples were so far reaching to not just myself, my family, but all to my friends, our son. He apologised and he said, "I just didn't realise it's a million times worse than I ever thought it was for you." The word rape had given him so much power over me. It had made him seem a lot scarier than he ever should have been. And to see him face to face sat there in that chair made me realise that I had nothing to be worried or scared about. He was just a person. Yes, that night was traumatic, but he can't have that power over me anymore. When I came out of that meeting, I felt I could have taken on anyone or anything, and I've finally regained that control and power back over my life. Part of me didn't even realise I was missing it, but once that had happened, once I'd had the meeting, I was just 100% complete again. The meeting in the end empowered me. It gave me the final piece of the jigsaw, the one thing that I needed to fully move on. I didn't even realise I think I needed it until it had happened. I felt like a massive weight that I've been carrying around with me for so long had finally gone, and it's given me the confidence to move on.